when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett told top Republicans on live TV to start lawyering up. Most viewers thought it was just bravado. That changed fast once the receipts went public and the panic got real. It was supposed to be a routine Sunday morning segment, a roundtable on inside politics today, with Crockett seated beside a trio of older pundit Republican figure Speaker Mike Johnson among them. The studio lights were unforgiving, makeup thick. The pre-show briefing had been clear. Keep it civil, stay on script. No surprises, but Jasmine either didn't get the memo or didn't care anymore. Dana Blaylock, the calm, seasoned host of morning political television, had barely finished her opening question when Jasmine stepped in. It wasn't brash. It wasn't loud. It was controlled, clear, and the steadiness of her voice made the interruption land even harder. "I'm going to say this now," Jasmine began, turning slightly toward Johnson but keeping her eyes locked on the camera. "Within 18 months, we're going to see the release of internal records, real ones that directly tie multiple sitting members of Congress to obstruction efforts related to the last 2 election cycles." Johnson blinked. His expression stayed neutral, but his grip on the armrest tightened. The table went silent. Dana hesitated, unsure if Jasmine was finished. She was, but then leaned forward. Just enough for the camera crew to reframe the shot. Her tone didn't change, but it sharpened. "And y'all might want to start lawyering up," she added. "This isn't 2016. We're keeping receipts." A crack in the silence. Johnson let out a short, unnatural laugh. One of the aides behind the glass wall put a phone to their ear. In the control room, someone whispered, "We're going to break." But Dana didn't cut away. "Would you like to respond?" He tried. Another strained laugh. Then a dismissive comment about baseless conspiracies and partisan theater. He pivoted border security, immigration, anything else, but it was too late. Jasmine hadn't raised her voice, but she'd set the table on fire online. It took 43 seconds. That's how long it took for the clip to hit Twitter, then TikTok, then YouTube. The exact moment she said, "We're keeping receipts," was clipped and looped, dissected, captioned, and shared. Her calm delivery, the barely raised eyebrow. The voice of someone not speculating, but stating what she already knew. By the end of the broadcast, Jasmine Crockett was trending by noon. Her office was swamped. Requests poured in from The Hill, CBS News, MSNBC, The Daily Beast. Reporters who'd once written her off as too aggressive were now scrambling to book her for analysis. Inside the Capitol, phones in Republican offices lit up. Staffers were whispering questions that hadn't surfaced in months. Is this about the fundraiser list? Did she access the sealed notes? Who flipped? Fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, and Jasmine had just handed it at Mike. But this wasn't off the cuff. It wasn't impulsive. Her team had planned it for weeks. The setting, the moment, the target. Most of all, they'd waited for the right piece of intel, clean enough to mention, vague enough to keep her protected, sharp enough to draw blood. It worked. Later that day, she gave a brief press conference outside her office. No frills, no grandstanding, a reporter asked. "Are you suggesting there's criminal wrongdoing by sitting members of Congress?" Jasmine didn't flinch. "I'm not suggesting anything," she replied. "I'm saying it directly. You'll see what I mean soon." Enough. Then she turned and walked back inside. What followed wasn't just media blowback, it was coordinated Republican counterstrike. One that revealed more about their fear than her words ever could. Backstage after the broadcast, the silence was heavier than the studio lights. Mike Johnson exited first, whispering to a senior aide. No one made eye contact with Jasmine as she passed the line of staffers. She didn't need the polite hallway chatter. She'd said what she came to say by the time she reached the black SUV waiting outside. Her communications director, Brianna Lowell, Was already scrolling through her phone like it was overheating. 600,000 views already, Brianna muttered. Just the 27-second TikTok loop. Hashtag we keeping receipts is exploding. Jasmine, this is already way bigger than we thought. Jasmine didn't answer right away. She stared out the window as traffic rolled through quiet Sacramento streets. The city was calm. The internet wasn't. Brianna kept going, her voice rising. The Daily Wire called it a stunt. Fox says it's political blackmail. Greg Giles is live saying it's a new low in progressive paranoia. She paused. They're panicking, and they're coming hard. Jasmine turned to her, eyes clear. Good, she said. Means they heard me. What no one in the studio realized, not the anchors, not the spin doctors, not even the Twitter warriors, was just how deliberate this moment had been, and what was coming next. Back at Republican headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, a heavy silence settled over a sleek conference room. Senior staffers and legal advisors had gathered for a standard Sunday briefing, but Jasmine Crockett had just changed the agenda. Speaker Mike Johnson, still in his suit from the broadcast, stood in front of a dry erase board that an hour earlier had nothing to do with Crockett. Now it did. Do we have confirmation she's bluffing? Johnson asked, scanning the room. A younger aide, Noah Green, jumped in too fast. I mean, there's nothing out there, right? Oh geez, grandstanding. One of Johnson's older legal consultants leaned back in his chair and gave a tired shake of the head. You ever notice she never says something she can't back up? Even the stuff that sounds wild. This isn't theater, Mike. If she said it live, she's holding something. Johnson didn't respond. His fingers pressed together, the quiet around him stretching longer than he liked. Meanwhile, over in Crockett's camp, the choice was clear. Lean in. From her official account, Jasmine's team dropped a 12-tweet thread, each tweet linked. 2 public records, past hearings, and direct quotes from Republicans she'd just confronted. The final tweet was short. We're keeping receipts. In less than 4 hours, her follower count jumped by 80,000. Cable news. Shows liberal and conservative alike couldn't ignore it. The questions started rolling in. Is she bluffing? Was it a warning? What does she know? On CNN, former federal prosecutor Lyle Moreno weighed in. If she's referring to sealed oversight records, this could be one of the most strategic public chess moves we've seen in years. Social media took a different tone. One user posted, "Y'all laughed when she called out that committee mess. Who's laughing now?" Another added, "This is what smart looks like." Inside the GOP PR machine, panic spread. It wasn't enough to dismiss the claim, they had to bury it. By late afternoon, Congressman Ray Turner, one of Johnson's most vocal allies, took to X, formerly Twitter, to call Crockett's remarks theatrical nonsense and a distraction from Biden's failing economy. He miscalculated. A video clip from a 2020 hearing resurfaced almost instantly. Turner, under oath, denying any knowledge of deleted communications tied to a post-election audit. The quote didn't age well. Neither did the optics. In the replies, a clip of Jasmine glaring at him from that same hearing began circulating again. One comment read, "Y'all forgot who she is." Another, "She plays long games. Quiet ones." Journalists started circling not just the usual political beat reporters, but independent investigative outlets too. Some quietly reached out. To her office, her team didn't bite. They didn't need to. Jasmine was already 3 steps ahead, because the pressure Republicans were now feeling. That was just the beginning. More secrets were coming. Not all of them were safely buried. For many Americans, especially outside Texas, this was their first unfiltered glimpse of Jasmine Crockett, not just clips, not just sound bites. By evening, her congressional hearing exchanges were being edited into primetime packages. branded with labels like Rising Force, Democratic Firebrand, and more condescendingly outspoken. But back in Dallas, no one was surprised. At 42, Jasmine Crockett had lived 3 distinct lives: civil rights attorney, state legislator, now Congresswoman. And in each, she'd built a reputation for doing 2 things extremely well: calling out lies and doing it without losing her cool. She grew up in public schools in Waxahachie, Texas, a small town where teachers remembered her as the girl who never missed a debate and always had a book in her hand. Her high school history teacher, Mrs. Flynn, once said Jasmine didn't just want the answer. She wanted the timeline and the motive behind it. Her legal career began in underfunded public defense in Dallas County, often representing young black men dealt losing hands by the system. While other attorneys rushed to settle, Jasmine read every line of every file and fought with precision, not volume. One judge once told a colleague, "She doesn't grandstand. She just tightens the screw until the other side folds." They came Ferguson, then Sandra Bland, and Jasmine Crockett never looked away. Jasmine pivoted civil rights lawsuits, voter protection, police accountability hearings. By 2019, she had earned a seat in the Texas House, and from day one, she made headlines. Not for theatrics, but for speaking like every word mattered. Her voice wasn't crafted to go viral, but sometimes it did. What set her apart wasn't just intelligence, it was restraint. She knew when to stay quiet and let people dig their own holes. And when she did strike, it was surgical. Even those who disliked her style admitted something that made critics uneasy. Jasmine Crockett didn't fire wildly. She waited. When she spoke, it was because the room had been quiet too long. That's why her moment on national television hit with such weight. It wasn't just what she said did, was who was saying it. Someone who didn't bluff. Someone who rarely spoke out of turn. Someone who'd been quietly connecting the dots for years. Votes, leaked memos, delayed reports, suspicious timelines. She wasn't stockpiling outrage. She was building a pattern. She didn't play by cable news rules. That Sunday, she wore a simple navy blazer, hair pulled back. No flashy jewelry. But when she leaned into the camera and said, "We're keeping receipts," America didn't see a soundbite. They saw a woman who might actually have them, in a Pittsburgh bar. 2 college interns watched the clip on a wall-mounted screen. One leaned over and said, "She's not bluffing, right?" The other shook his head. Not even a little. Across the country, from campaign offices in Tallahassee to Boise, operatives were already typing her name into Slack channels. Track her appearances, pull transcripts, figure out who's feeding her info. But here's the thing, no one was feeding her anything. She had just been paying attention while no one else was. They'd mistaken her silence for inexperience. Her youth for naivete. Her style for flash. They were wrong. Her comes director, Brianna, said it best when a reporter asked what the game plan was. "There's no game plan. She's not doing theater. She's doing math. The rest of y'all just don't know the equation yet." And that equation was starting to rattle people, because the more they looked back at what she'd said over the years, the clearer it became. Jasmine Crockett had been building to this moment all along, and none of them saw it coming. By Monday morning, receipts wasn't just trending, it had taken on a life of its own. Not because she dropped it like a buzzword, but because her team backed it up. Almost immediately, at 7 a.m. Eastern, Jasmine's official account posted a link. It led to a public database independently hosted, verified by her office. The title read, "Timeline of Obstruction, 2019-2024 Cross-Referenced Votes, Hearings, and Public Statements." Line after line, dates, names, committees, transcripts, video clips, source documents. Some people thought it had to be fake, just a PR stunt. It wasn't. Reporters dug in, fact-checkers worked overtime. And by midday, the headlines hit. The receipts were real. The Washington Post published a side-by-side breakdown of 3 GOP representatives, one of whom had just appeared on air with Jasmine. All 3 had previously denied contact with private firms lobbying against DOJ subpoenas, but the timeline showed otherwise coordinated meetings, calendar invites from private emails, and committee hearings that mysteriously shifted afterward. No single smoking gun, but enough smoke to get the room hot, which was exactly what Jasmine intended. Back in her DC office, Brianna stared at the analytics dashboard. 2.1 million impressions, she said. Over 80,000 clicks. Media shares are off the charts. Jasmine sat at her desk, flipping through a printed version of the timeline. "They're going to come after us," she murmured, eyes still on the page. "They already are," Brianna replied. Ray Tanner's team is spinning hard. They're calling it data manipulation. Jasmine didn't flinch. She turned the page. "Let them," she said. "They know what's in here. They just didn't think we'd lay it all out." And across town right then, that prediction was already coming true. On Capitol Hill, staffers were printing screenshots. Fox News had just aired a segment titled Crockett's Conspiracy Chart, Genius or Garbage. But by the time it hit screens, viewers were already posting counter screenshots links to the actual evidence, line by line. Even conservative outlets like the Dispatch and National Review released columns calling the database troubling and difficult to dismiss. The brilliance wasn't in what the documents exposed, it was how they were presented. Clean, chronological, clear enough for a high school civics class. People could see it, feel it. More importantly, they could smell the panic. By midweek, the narrative had shifted. Republicans stopped denying the documents existed. Now they were just trying to discredit the conclusions. Jasmine went quiet. No interviews, no press tour. When CNN asked her team for a comment, they replied with one sentence: "The public has eyes, let them use them." It was one of those rare moments when a politician handed the mic to the people and walked away. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson was scrambling. On Thursday, he held a hasty press conference inside a cavernous warehouse in Baton Rouge, flanked by donors and flanked by forklifts. He delivered his line. "This isn't truth, since showmanship." But a local reporter cut him off mid-sentence. "Have you actually reviewed the timeline she released?" A pause. "I'm aware of it. Have you checked your own entries on it?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I'm not going to entertain conspiracy charts," he finally said, voice sharpening. "We have real work to do." The clip was online within minutes. Within hours, the internet had renamed the document Mike Johnson's Nightmare Spreadsheet. Still, Jasmine stayed silent. No clapbacks, no late-night quote tweets. And that made it worse, because her silence didn't feel like retreat. It felt like strategy. And when someone stops yelling, you start wondering what they're waiting for. At RNC headquarters in Arlington, inside a locked conference room with bad coffee and too much stillness, Speaker Johnson sat at the far end of a long cherrywood table. His jacket was off, collar loosened, voice tight. Across from him were 7 people legal aides, PR specialists, and 2 outside crisis consultants brought in late Wednesday. This isn't a Combs issue, said Deborah Renshaw, a crisis manager, with scars from 3 Senate scandals. This is a coordination leak. She's either got a whistleblower or she's listening to conversations someone thought were off record. "We vetted our people," Johnson muttered. "There's no leak." "Well," another consultant said dryly, "she sure as hell didn't build that database with vibes and Google alone." The tension wasn't just about what was in the timeline, it was about how the public reacted to it. The more they tried to dismiss it, the more credible it became. 2 staffers had already been sidelined. One after old emails surfaced showing he'd pressured a state election official to avoid an audit. The other had been caught scrubbing LinkedIn. Connections to a political consulting firm under federal investigation in New Mexico. Johnson turned to his press director. "Noah Green, give me the rundown." Noah adjusted his glasses. "She's gained over 3 million interactions in 48 hours. The database is spreading through private Slack channels. Lawyers, journalists, even former DOJ people are sharing it." A voice from the back of the room muttered, "She's becoming a hero." Worse than that, Deborah snapped. "She's becoming believable." And for a party that had thrived on spectacle and spin, that was a threat they didn't know how to fight. Jasmine didn't scream. She didn't bait. She didn't tease vague claims and disappear. She dropped hard facts and let the dominoes fall. What terrified them wasn't what she had released. It was the quiet suggestion that this was just phase one. Down the hall, in a smaller room, 3 high-dollar Republican donors from Arizona, Iowa, and Pennsylvania were on a call with Senate Minority Leader Brent Davison. "If this thing widens," said the Iowa donor, "I want my name nowhere near Johnson's team." The Arizona donor was blunter. "She's laying traps. Every denial makes her stronger. You better find the fire before the smoke turns into subpoenas." Back in the main room, Johnson leaned back. "She's building a story," he said grimly. "And we're playing defense." "Then flip the game," Deborah said. "Control the narrative, discredit the source. If you can't fight the message, fight the messenger." By sundown, the counteroffensive had begun. 2 conservative columnists published near-identical op-eds questioning Jasmine Crockett's funding, implying without evidence that her database might have been compiled by left-leaning tech groups looking to manipulate the 2026 cycle. No facts, just questions. Just. Enough to slow the momentum, but not for long. Crockett's team released a short, sharp video. Jasmine sat at her desk, eyes locked on the camera. "No one paid us to tell the truth," she said. "And if they start asking who gave me this information, tell them the GOP did. Y'all just weren't careful enough." Mic drop. 1 million views in 4 hours. Within minutes, GOP staffers were warning junior aides, stop discussing meeting schedules on unsecured devices. Offices that hadn't run cybersecurity audits in years were suddenly pulling logs, running scans. They didn't know how far back she'd been watching, but they finally understood this wasn't a stunt. It was a slow bleed. And Jasmine had the scalpel. What no one expected was that someone from their own side was about to hand her even more. It started with a DM. Jasmine was in her DC apartment, curled up on her worn leather couch, Law and Order playing quietly in the background. Laptop open. She wasn't checking messages, but one pinged through anyway. Kendrick Miles, a name she hadn't seen in nearly 4 years. He'd once worked with the House Oversight IT subcommittee, quiet, methodical, brilliant. In 2020, he helped her team organize digital records during the Texas redistricting fight. Then he vanished, said he'd gone into private work in Oregon. Now, out of nowhere, he wrote, "I don't trust anyone else. Can we talk off record?" She replied instantly. They set up a signal call for 10 p.m. When Kendrick's voice came through, it was steady, familiar. "I saw what you dropped," he said. "I also saw who didn't deny it." Jasmine let him talk. "I still have access. They think I'm out. But I've been watching server metadata on the Hill for 6 months. Jasmine, the document trail you started, it's wider. Way wider. Cached meetings, shelved draft memos, requests formatted but never filed. They were too scared to move them. So they buried them in raw drives." He paused just once, not fear. "Caution, you can prove this?" She asked. "I already have." Before hanging up, he added one line that stuck in her head. "I don't want credit. I want protection." The next morning, Kendrick sent an encrypted file. Her legal team spent a day verifying it. Then another day, cross-referencing it with Jasmine's original database. It matched too well. Time-stamped drafts. GOP talking points lifted straight from internal memos. One note showed language edits between a committee member and an unnamed outside advisor on a bill marketed as bipartisan. Worse still, messages directing staffers to delay briefings until after key committee votes. Then backdate the submission. Logs. Obstruction in writing. Jasmine called Kendrick again. "You sure this can't be traced? I used burner credentials. Tor routing. Unless they've got NSA-grade tools, they'll never find me." And if they suspect, they've been blaming each other since February. Still, Jasmine didn't move recklessly. She called a private meeting. Just her 2 lawyers and her chief of staff. No phones, no notes. Only whiteboards. Brianna asked, "The obvious? What do we do with this?" Jasmine took a moment. "If we leak it, they bury Kendrick. If we sit on it, they keep scrambling. But if we package it like it's part 2. Brianna interrupted. "Exactly." While GOP operatives chased shadows and spun theories about progressive disinfo labs, Jasmine's team worked quietly, deliberately. Every file was scrubbed, sourced, labeled, verified. The title? Simple. The addendum. Then, silence. 3 days. No interviews. No social media. No sound bites on committee floors. Cable networks speculated. Had she been muzzled? Had the White House leaned in? Was she cracking under the pressure? They were wrong. The silence was Kendrick's idea. "Drop it on a Friday," he told her. "Right? When they think you've peaked. They won't have time to bury it before the weekend headlines hit." So she did. Friday, 4:43 p.m., Jasmine's office posted a single tweet. "We're not done." Attached a second database. No caption. No context. By 6 p.m., the addendum was trending across 5 platforms. This time, there were no fiery denials, no press flurries from the GOP. Instead, some lawmakers simply vanished. 3 deleted their Twitter accounts. 1 canceled a scheduled appearance at a Chamber of Commerce event. Their silence said more than any press release could. The public noticed. Jasmine had spent weeks building the case. Someone from the inside had just handed her the fuse. Then came the texts. At first, they were vague jabs. "Watch your back, Crockett. Big mouth makes big targets. Keep pushing, you'll disappear." Some came from burner numbers. Others from social accounts created moments before they sent their message. The tone varied, sarcastic, ominous, desperate. But the message stayed the same. "You're pushing too hard." Jasmine brushed them off. She'd seen threats before. Being a black woman in politics made that inevitable. But this felt different, more organized, less like internet trolls. More like people trying very hard not to sound afraid. Then, one Wednesday morning, her aide Ricardo froze in the doorway. Call sheet in hand. "You need to see this," he said, placing a plain envelope on her desk. No stamp, no return address. Just her name, all caps. Inside were 2 printed pages. 1. A grainy security camera image of her condo building's front entrance. Timestamped. Last night. The second, a detailed list her weekend schedule, staff names, even her brother's incoming flight info. She stayed still. But her team didn't. By noon, Capitol Police had been called. Jasmine was assigned full-time protective detail. She tried to refuse. "I'm not walking around like I'm scared," she said. Ricardo didn't flinch. His look wasn't fear. It was frustration. "This isn't about fear. It's about staying here long enough to finish what you started." That landed. From then on, she moved with 2 plainclothes officers. Entry routes changed. Speaking venues were double-screened. Every bag checked. Outside a Tulsa community center, A reporter called out, "Do you feel like you've put a target on your back?" Jasmine smiled. Dry. "If I did, it means I hit something worth protecting." That quote made headlines. Inside, the pressure was mounting. Her staff was loyal, but exhausted. Brianna hadn't slept more than 4 hours in a week. Ricardo looked like he was living on caffeine and grit. 2 junior aides asked for time off, burnout. Even Kendrick, invisible behind layers of encryption, was starting to crack. "We should pull back," he said on Signal one night. "They're combing old subcommittee logs, not just watching." They're hunting me now." "You're clean," she told him. "I was careful," he said. "That doesn't mean they won't invent something." He was right. But Jasmine stayed the course, because something else was happening. After the addendum dropped, GOP staffers began quietly purging LinkedIn pages. Bios changed. One went private entirely. Then came the email's anonymous tips from Hill employees. No names, no details, but patterns. Deleted calendar entries, restricted folders. Abrupt shifts in committee communication channels. Nothing confirmed, but enough to know. The ground was shifting, and then a mistake. During a Fox News segment, Congressman Brett Halter tried to discredit the addendum. He claimed one memo was fake, doctored, never finalized. 2 hours later, Jasmine's team dropped receipts, the original draft. The edited version, time-stamped submission logs. Every line matched. Halter's staff had to walk it back. And it was a small win, but a public one, and it confirmed what Jasmine already suspected. They weren't just worried, so rattled. They were lying before checking facts. That's when she knew it was time to speak again, on a Thursday night livestream with commentator Shonda Dillard. Jasmine gave her first real interview since the threats began. Shonda didn't pull punches. "Is it worth it?" she asked. Jasmine didn't blink. "If telling the truth makes powerful people uncomfortable, then yes, it's worth it. But I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing it for the people who never get to sit at these tables," Jasmine said. "For the folks who've been talked over, lied to, ignored. We've been quiet long enough." The clip hit 3.2 million views in under 48 hours. Support poured in: messages from community leaders, donations from grassroots organizers. Even former critics moderates who once dismissed her as too loud sent letters. "Thank you," they wrote. "You stood up and brought receipts." The threats hadn't stopped, but the air had changed, and the temperature was about to spike again. Because the next bombshell, it wasn't going to come from her. It was going to drop in the middle of a hearing, and there'd be no time to spin it. The Rayburn House office building is never truly quiet. Even on slow days, footsteps echo down its marble halls. Staffers shuffle papers. The fluorescent hum never stops. But on the morning of the Oversight Committee's closed-door sessions, something shifted. Not what you heard, what you didn't. Conversations were shorter. Staffers clutched folders closer. Eye contact broke fast. It was as if everyone had read the same invisible headline. Something's about to crack. Jasmine Crockett arrived early. No phone, no laptop, no aide, just a slim binder in one hand. Inside the committee room, the setup was familiar. Democrats to the left, Republicans to the right. At the head of the table, acting chairwoman Lorna Bays. The agenda was expected to be routine. Briefings, agency delays, subpoena squabbles. No one expected what Jasmine had brought. She waited until the second half of the hearing right after Congressman Brent Allen finished a pointed rant about wasted committee time. Then she raised her hand. "I'd like to enter a statement and request the committee review a new piece of information tied to our obstruction investigations." Allen rolled his eyes. Another political stunt. Chairwoman Bays looked too. "Jasmine, go ahead." She opened the binder slowly. Not for drama. For precision. Inside, a printed excerpt from an archived subcommittee communication log. One that hadn't been touched in over a year. And one no one expected her to have. "I'd like to draw attention to this entry," she said, sliding the paper down the table. "It references a coordinated delay between private consultants and staff from Congressman Halder's office regarding oversight scheduling and materials approval." Halder, seated 2 chairs down, leaned in. "That document's not in the public record, I'm aware," Jasmine replied. "But the meeting it references. Several of us were there, including your former assistant, Ms. Chaffin." Silence. Chairwoman Bays narrowed her eyes. "Where did you get this, Congresswoman?" "It's an anonymous source, credentialed. The document's hash matches archived oversight cloud logs. Fully verified." "Plain English, please," said Congressman Joel Stover. "It means," Jasmine said, "this wasn't leaked. It wasn't deleted. It was forgotten and recovered." The room stilled. Then Halder slammed his pen on the table. "This is out of order. She's quoting stolen material." Jasmine didn't flinch. "No, Congressman. I'm quoting your draft notes. Time-stamped, verified, and protected under federal whistleblower law." Chairwoman Bays turned to the clerk. "Enter it into provisional record pending verification." Outside, the building buzzed before the session even ended. A reporter waiting by the elevators overheard Halder's chief of staff yelling into a phone. "She got the Chaffin log." "I don't know how, but she got it." By the time the committee adjourned, it was already public. An independent watchdog had posted a side-by-side comparison. Halder's sworn testimony. V's, the internal meeting notes. The phrasing didn't just resemble, it matched. Word for word. Implication, Halder rehearsed testimony using material that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Jasmine said nothing to reporters as she left the building. But that night, Kendrick texted her just one line. They didn't see that one coming. Neither did the press. That evening, networks ran banner headlines. The Halder memo, legal analysts debated live. Was this obstruction, proof of intent, or just another crack in the dam? Meanwhile, Jasmine's approval among independents surged 5 points in 48 hours. Even late night, hosts chimed in. She didn't just keep receipts. One joked she brought the canceled checks, invoice trail, and the group chat screenshots. But Jasmine stayed quiet. No interviews. No tweets. Business as usual, because to her, this wasn't the victory. It was just the door creaking open. And behind that door was a growing public, no longer looking for sound bites. They were starting to look for consequences. The tide didn't crash. It inched, mark by mark. But in politics, even one mark matters. By the start of the following week, polling firms picked up the shift. Independent voters, long disillusioned with both parties, were paying attention to Jasmine Crockett. Not because she made bold promises, not because she delivered viral soundbites, but because she showed the receipts piece by piece in a swing district outside Flagstaff. A focus group that had leaned Republican for years suddenly had members. Quoting her word for word, one woman, a retired school principal, summed it up. "I don't agree with all her politics, but at least she's not lying to my face. She talks like someone who's been ignored before." In Toledo, a group of veterans gathered at their local VFW hall, watched oversight committee clips on a muted TV. They kept nodding. "She's not yelling," one said. "She's just saying, here's what happened. Here's the paper. Read it yourself." Hard to argue with that. Meanwhile, Republican leadership scrambled. Mike Johnson's office issued a carefully worded press release. "We encourage transparency and facts, not carefully orchestrated smears." But fact-checkers pounced. The phrase "carefully orchestrated" practically admitted Jasmine's work had landed. Worse, Halder stopped giving interviews. His office claimed he was focused on upcoming legislative matters, not distracted by political attacks. The statement came a day after his senior advisor abruptly resigned, citing irreconcilable differences with office direction. Even GOP members untouched by the scandal started avoiding eye contact. In hallway runs with reporters, they repeated the same brittle phrase, "No comment at this time." The bravado was fading, crushed under details they never expected would see daylight. And, behind closed doors, something new stirred. Calls started coming in. Not from the press, from staffers. Some were from across the aisle. Not all wanted to expose corruptions, some were just tired. Tired of being used as shields. Tired of carrying water for people who wouldn't even notice if they drowned. One anonymous message read simply, "I saw the database. You're right. And it's worse." But Jasmine didn't take that at face value. She didn't trust sudden solidarity. She asked for evidence, days, emails, names, and when she got them, she filed them quietly. She wasn't building a narrative anymore. She was building a case. Meanwhile, her supporters got louder. On college campuses, students held receipt. Circles gatherings to dissect timelines, flag suspicious overlaps, and email their reps. High school teachers started using her database as a civic lesson, proof that public records still matter. At a church in Oakland, an elder stood up during service and said, "I may not know politics, but I know truth, and this young woman has been telling it." Cable news caught up. Pundits who'd dismissed her weeks ago now opened segments with, "Has Jasmine Crockett changed the rules of oversight?" Facts, not fireworks. Why voters are tuning in. But Jasmine didn't change her stride. She kept showing up to hearings, asking questions, filing motions, taking notes. The only difference now, every move she made carried weight. She didn't have to raise her voice. Her presence made others sit straighter. During a staff meeting that Wednesday, Brianna glanced at her screen and whispered, "You feel that shift?" "They're listening," she said. "Not because they want to, because they have to." Jasmine nodded. "Let them listen. I'm not done." And outside the Beltway, the whispers began to shift, too. People weren't just calling her a voice of accountability anymore. They were wondering if she might rise even higher. That's when the Democratic's brass establishment took notice. An invitation arrived, quiet, official, from the party's strategy retreat in Scottsdale. The note was brief. "We'd like your input on national oversight messaging." That kind of ask doesn't come out of courtesy. It comes from recognition. But Jasmine didn't let it rattle her at a modest town hall in Shreveport. She stood in front of a crowd of 60. Local, tight-knit, and exactly who she'd been fighting for all along. A retired union leader asked her, "They're calling you the future of the party. What do you think about that?" Jasmine paused. "I think the future should be honest," she said. "That's it." And that honesty, quiet, steady, unapologetic, was doing something outrage never could. It was making people believe again. The turning point didn't come with a viral moment or dramatic reveal. It arrived quietly on a Thursday afternoon during a community Q&A at Lincoln High School in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The auditorium wasn't packed, maybe 120 people, teachers, students, parents, retirees. The local paper sent a reporter. No national cameras, no handlers. Just a folding table, a mic, and Jasmine Crockett, sleeves rolled up. Bottle of water at her feet. She fielded questions about school funding, infrastructure, and small business aid. Then a woman in the back stood up and asked, "Congresswoman Crockett, why do you think this moment matters so much to people who usually don't trust anyone in D.C.?" Jasmine looked out at the crowd, some curious, some tired, all waiting. "Because I'm not asking anyone to trust me," she said. "I'm asking them to trust themselves, to look at the facts, to ask the questions they've been told they're Too busy, too unqualified, too ordinary to ask. She leaned forward slightly, voice softer now. For too long, politicians have counted on people feeling small, like government is something that happens to them, not for them. But that's never been true. It's just more convenient when people believe it. Someone clapped. Then a few. More. This isn't just about a document, she went on, or a name buried in a log. It's about the culture of silence. It's about the idea that we're supposed to wait our turn. Be patient. Let the process play out. But sometimes the process, it is broken. And sometimes the people who are supposed to fix it are the ones quietly jamming the gears. There was no anger in her voice, just clarity. And for the first time in a long time, people weren't waiting to be convinced. They were already with her. That night, the local reporter's piece went. Live under the headline, Crockett reminds us who government is supposed to work for. Back in D.C., the tone had shifted. GOP operatives had stopped calling her reckless. Now they called her dangerous. Not because she was threatening power, but because she had become untouchable. Her facts kept checking out. And the questions were starting to land on them. Why were so many records misstated? Why had certain votes been delayed without explanation? Why were staffers being shuffled after document leaks? The pressure on Jasmine didn't disappear. The threats didn't stop. Not every ally stayed loyal. But the momentum had shifted. She had built something they hadn't prepared for. Public trust without spectacle. A movement grounded in substance. In politics, that's the rarest currency there is. Even the White House took notice. In a closed-door meeting on transparency, a senior advisor casually mentioned her oversight work. Word got back to her office. Within hours, Brianna looked up from her laptop, half smiling. You know you're messing with the whole system now, right? Jasmine chuckled, tired, but steady. I'm not trying to burn it down. I'm trying to make it work. Her message wasn't slick. It wasn't packaged in slogans, but it landed because it was consistent. Every receipt, every log, every quiet exposure, all said the same thing. You don't have to yell to be heard. You just have to show the truth, then let it speak louder than the lies. Weeks later, during a televised roundtable on political integrity, a conservative columnist Hood once dismissed her said this: Jasmine Crockett is the most methodical threat to status quo power Washington has seen in years. But Jasmine never called herself a threat. She called herself accountable. And that's what resonated most. In an age of noise, she had chosen clarity. And whether her investigations led to indictments, reforms, or headlines didn't matter as much anymore. She had shifted the conversation back to records, back to consequences, back to the people. And before stepping off that high school stage in Santa Fe, she looked at the audience one last time and said, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to make sure the truth can't be ignored. And the only way I win is if you stop forgetting how much power you really have. She smiled. Co-use it. Because what started as a bold soundbite on live TV had become something far more powerful. Proof that honesty, patience, and relentless facts could still break through the noise. And in doing so, Jasmine Crockett didn't just shake Washington. She reminded the rest of us, the real power was never in their hands. It was always in ours. So if this story made you pause even for a second, and ask yourself, what else have we accepted without questioning? Subscribe, stay curious, and keep watching, because truth doesn't fear the light.